The hero's journey was something that was made infamous by Joseph Campbell, who saw this underlying story structure within our stories, especially hero stories and hero myths. And he noted that this was inherent to our storytelling process. It was inherent in the way that it was all around the world. It was different cultures and their mythologies and their storytelling, and that it had to be told in this certain structure. And many storytellers use it today, but a lot of them use that kind of bare bone structure and fit their stories on top of it. And it happens to be that Top Gun is one of those stories. That's a lot of our stories, especially our action movies, big hero myths. And it happens to be, and I don't know if the person who wrote this specifically wrote it for the ESTP, but it doesn't really matter because it is exactly the hero's journey of the ESTP. And I couldn't spell it out for you any clearer than if I tried to, go step by step myself. And so it's great that this story does it so eloquently and so much in detail that we can just follow it straight along and watch it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the progression of the cognitive functions. We're going to start in the ordinary world of our hero, and we're going to follow them into an enlightened state of their type. If you haven't seen Top Gun, recommend you go watch it. It's actually a really fun movie, and so go watch it and then come back here and watch this. Now, the ordinary world is wherever our hero begins. And we're going to say hero, it's just the main character of that story. This happens to be for this hero, for our character, our main character Maverick, that his everyday, ordinary life is being a fighter pilot, a F-14 fighter pilot for the Navy, where he patrols borders, looks for adversaries, and that's where we begin our story.
Inbound Mustang. Your vector 090 for bogey.
Who's up there?
Cougar and Merlin and Maverick and Goose.
Great. Maverick and Goose.
So we meet our character doing their everyday life, patrolling the borders with their backseater Goose, happens to be his best friend, and they're also flying with their wingman who happens to be Cougar and Merlin. And everything's going great, and this is a really great job for, say, an ESTP. So let's talk about the first cognitive function of SE, extroverted sensing. So what is extroverted sensing? Extroverted sensing is being very present in the experience of what is happening right now. So they're very aware of everything that is happening in the present, everything that we're all experiencing all together at once. And so they're really good at being reactive, at not being panicked when they have to react, because again, they're very capable of responding very quickly and actually enjoy that kind of a thing. And so they're naturals at it. And so of course it fits very much that this character would be a fighter pilot who is able to react in a moment's notice, not get too riled up, and is ready to engage at any moment.
You've got MiG 1. I'm going after MiG 2.
Now we see right away that Maverick is a very capable pilot. He's ready to engage. And that brings us to the second function of the ESTP, and that is TI, introverted thinking. And so that introverted thinking is your subjective logic. Things have to make sense on why you do them, how you do them. And what this does specifically for the ESTP, SE with that TI kind of right behind it, always kind of combined with it, makes the ESTP people who can be very tactical very quickly. And that's why you often will see the ESTPs who kind of will cluster in areas like sports, They're your warrior types. They're your military. They tend to really do well and excel in these areas, and so it's not surprising to find them in these positions and to find them doing really well, especially compared to other types. And that's where we see Maverick. He's able to respond. He's very tactical, and has no problem engaging in this kind of activity. Now, Maverick, of course, he sees that he needs to just kind of, the adversary isn't really serious, but just kind of playing with them, like a cat with a mouse. And so he goes and decides to just kind of have fun. Now, that third function, the FE, is definitely kind of ready to bring up the vibe at any moment. ESTPs can be a lot of fun. They can be, they have the SE, which makes them able to just like be in the experience, but they have the FE, which is like, let's kind of keep up morale as well. And so they can be really great at that. So Maverick goes, has a little fun, chases them away, and for him, this was just another day, no big deal. And he sees that he is running low on fuel and decides to head back to the aircraft carrier, and easy day.
Cougar, this is Maverick. We've had enough fun for one day, don't you think? I'm getting a little low on fuel, so we're heading home. We'll see you on deck.
So what happens next in the hero's journey is that there is something that is called the inciting incident. Now this is going to be something that affects our hero and changes the trajectory of where their lives were going. And this is very specific to that person, to our main character. And as Maverick is heading back to the aircraft carrier, he hears that the wingman, Cougar, is having some kind of a panic attack, some kind of strange episode where he's not responding. He had a near brush with death, or felt like he did, and he's just kind of lost it. And he's not responding, can't fly back. And again, back to that SE first function, the FE third function, Maverick hears about it and says, I'm gonna go back and get my friend. And this is where we get to the inferior function. And this is going to be the tale of Maverick throughout this entire story. And the backseater, Goose, again, in storytelling, Goose is kind of serving as the conscience. He's going to be the person who's trying to tell Maverick the right thing to do, hey, let's think this through. And Maverick, of course, is too much in his first function of SE that he's not really going to listen. He's thinking, I can handle it. I can SE handle it. I'm going to go and just handle it, and I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. And that is definitely the saying. If there was a mantra of the SE type, it is, I will cross that bridge when I come to it. Because they're not using their inferior function. So the inferior function of the ESTP is introverted intuition. And that is kind of understanding, seeing how things will unfold for themselves and what their actions are. And that's to put it very generally. But in this case, that's going to be the main way that we're talking about this throughout this movie. And that is, he's reacting, SE, being in the moment, and not thinking about the consequences. So the backseater Goose says, we can't go help our friend because we're very low on fuel and we may not make it. And Maverick decides on his own, he's being told by his supervision, don't go, you need to land that aircraft and not risk your death, destroying an aircraft. You need to land that aircraft and stay here. And Maverick disobeys, reacts in the moment, and decides, he'll figure out the fuel thing after he's helped his friend. So we have our save the cat moment where, again, that SEFE, let me go and help you. That ESTPs are great about kind of pulling people up and helping them out. But usually, they're the kind of person who is going to go back for the person who's struggling and be like, come on, you can do it, get up, and they're engaging them, saying, get into this SE, be here, be present, push through, and you can do it. And again, that FE, they're really good about kind of giving that, difficult, kind of tough love, like get up, do it, let's go. Maybe they're yelling at you, but they are doing it to engage you and to help you. And so ESTPs can be really good at this. They can also be very charming with the SE/FE. And they can also be ready to help a friend at any moment. And that's what we see here in this moment, where he goes back and he helps him and talks him through it and helps him land his aircraft. He lands safely, and everything is fine. And Maverick and Goose make it back and have just enough fuel to land their aircraft. Now it's time for Maverick to face the consequences. So we are back to the repercussions of that inciting incident. It doesn't seem like it in the moment, but Cougar having that panic attack is the inciting incident. It changes everything that's about to happen to our character. So he has to go and deal with the consequences of not listening. He risked his own life. He risked the life of his backseater. Could have crashed incredibly expensive tactical aircraft. So when he's going to hear about those consequences, just like he always does, it happens to be that in this moment, they can't pursue those consequences because they have to send somebody to Top Gun. And Cougar, who had the panic attack, is now out of the running. He turned in his wings. He no longer wants to be part of it. He wants to go and make sure that he's there for his family and not risk anything. And that puts Maverick into the position of going to Top Gun, to this elite school for fighter pilots. And it's really important to understand the story makes a point of that, to say you were not the first choice because you caused yourself problems. You have caused your career problems. You were not going to go. You did not make the cut. And it is only through maybe luck that you have gotten this far, haven't gotten in more trouble, avoided certain consequences in your life, and you're actually being rewarded only because somebody else failed. And that's the only reason you're getting this position. So that's it goes by so quick in the movie that you don't really realize what is being said here. And that is, you keep making mistakes and you didn't get this, you didn't earn this, but I have to give it to you because I have no other choice.
I'd like to bust your butt, but I can't. I got another problem here. I gotta send somebody from this squadron to Miramar. I gotta do something here. I still can't believe it. I gotta give you your dream shot. I'm gonna send you up against the best. You two characters are going to Top Gun. For 5 weeks, you're gonna fly against the best fighter pilots in the world. You were number 2, Cougar was number 1. Cougar lost it, turned in his wings. You guys are number 1.
And this allows Maverick and Goose to go to Top Gun, and now we have entered this new world where Maverick is going to be tested to see if he can grow into an enlightened state. And that's where our bigger story starts. Now, we start off, they're having a great time. They go out to a bar. There is a love story, and that's a different kind of story. There are love stories, romance stories that are sometimes tied many times into the hero's journey. That is a sub-story of the hero. So I'm not going to be covering that, except a little bit maybe later. I'm going to point out some things. But overall, I'm not going to be covering the love story part of this tale. So back to more of the typology discussion of this and how that fits into the story, is we get a really good example of the character of Maverick, who he is, how how he sees himself among his peers. And there's a moment in the classroom where they're talking about, it's kind of an introduction to these characters. And the main instructor, I believe his name is Viper, he comes in and talks about, what they're there for, what the goal is. Your goal is to be the top, the best of the best, and get your name on this plaque, and that'll show that you were the top pilot of all the top pilots. And he asks a general question and says,
You think your name's gonna be on that plaque?
and Maverick responds,
Yes, sir.
and the instructor says, well, that's pretty arrogant considering the company that you're in. You're among the other best of the best. So that's pretty arrogant to just simply say, before you've even started the contest, really, yeah, I'm going to be at the top. I'm already there. In my mind, I'm already there. Now, I want to point this out about the ESTP. So the ESTP can sometimes come off as very cocky to other people, right? They seem very sure of themselves. They see themselves as very capable. And the thing is, it is part of that first function to say, you know what, I see myself being able to handle it. I will deal with it in the moment. When there is a challenge, I will rise up to it and I will fight that thing and I will deal with it. And so it's not so much that they are arrogant. It is that they believe in themselves. They believe in their capability to deal with a situation when it arises, and that they will rise up to meet that challenge, because that is what they do. They are very capable. Like we said, you're the people who often go into sports and the military and these actionable areas that require to be tested in the moment. And they do rise to those occasions. And so whenever Maverick is being asked that, he's like, yes, I do see myself there. And I believe in myself. I believe that I can handle it. Now, of course, this goes back to that inferior NI, that inferior introverted intuition of kind of seeing that path forward. He believes that he will handle it and he will deal with it. And the question is, can he actually chart that path forward that he's not really looking at? That's not really on the horizon of how are you going to get there, though? What are you going to do to make sure that you get there besides just dealing with it when it comes? And that is going to be what we see, that inferior function is going to keep coming into play and stopping Maverick. And him not using it is going to keep hindering him, because he's unwilling to use that inferior function. Is going to keep impacting his life, because he's not willing to power down the first function of SE to use that more. And until he can integrate that, until he can become more enlightened, he's going to have trouble, and it's going to cause him trouble. And so let's go ahead and look at the very first time that happens in the story. So it is time for them to go into the skies and actually have these kind of mock battles where they go and they try and shoot each other down. And Maverick is a great pilot, right? He's ready to engage, and we're excited to watch him. And one of the first tests is an instructor named Jester. And Jester is also a great fighter pilot, and he's there to test them and push them. And so whenever Jester, before he begins, he says, listen, there's some basic rules. You can't do this, can't do this. And then there's a hard deck, and you cannot go below the hard deck. And that is just simply an area, kind of an imaginary line. We don't want people engaging that low to the ground because it could be dangerous. There's mountains, there's other things. So don't go below the hard deck. That is not allowed, and it is dangerous and very simple, right? So Maverick gets into the moment. He sees Jester, he wants Jester. And he decides, of course, to leave his wingman again, he's completely abandoned all the things that he's supposed to be doing. He's not following those rules. He's not following the guidelines that he's supposed to be following to get him to be the best fighter pilot. Instead, he's like, I'm going to go be the best fighter pilot by doing what I do, by engaging. And so he sees Jester and takes off and goes after him. And, he's doing a great job, right? He's a great pilot. And they're flying all over the place. And he sees that Jester is going for the hard deck. He's trying to get below it so that he can't be, shot down. Because he kind of realizes, I'm about to lose, so it's kind of cheating, right? But the rules are the rules. But Maverick can't stop engaging. He just won't let it go. And so he rushes and goes below the hard deck, gets the shot, and and thinks, okay, I did it. Who cares? Yeah, maybe I broke some rules, maybe I did that, but the point is that I got my person. I achieved that goal. And he's told, get above the hard deck and go back. This is probably going to cause Maverick problems. Now, that's not the only SE things that he's doing, right? Things where he's saying, I'm going to take an action, I'm going to do something, and I'm going to kind of not think about the consequences now. Again, I'll deal with the consequences. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, and I'm just going to take action. So as they're heading back from that engagement with Jester, they are trying to land, and they're told that the pattern is full. There's no place for them to come land at the moment. And again, Maverick is just like, let's just have some fun. Now again, Goose is, Maverick, don't do this. Don't do this. He's right. He's that conscience. He's going, hey, think this through, because we're going to get in trouble. You're going to cause a problem. But Maverick is in his, he's doing that FE, SE, and just like, let's just have some fun. Come on. And so he does what they call buzz the tower.
Goddamn son of a bitch.
And yeah, sure, that was a lot of fun, but now you gotta deal with the consequences.
Yeehaw! Jester's dead.
One piss bullshit.
Didn't everybody?
Hell no, man. We got our butts kicked.
We won.
All right. They won too, man.
That's not what I heard.
Well, we did. We got Jester.
No. Below the hard deck does not count.
Hard deck my ass. We nailed that son of a bitch.
Maverick, you and Goose get your butts out of that flight gear and up to Viper's office now.
So here we are again. Maverick is now in trouble, right? He's having to answer for his actions, and he tries to explain it, and he explains it in a very SE way. I mean, it's almost exactly talking about, I was being an ESTP.
You had a hell of a first day. The hard deck for this hop was 10,000 feet. You knew it, you broke it. Why?
And he explains to them, hey, I saw the opportunity and I took it.
Sir, I had Commander Heatherly in my sights. He saw me move in for the kill. He then proceeded below the hard deck. We weren't below 10,000 for more than a few seconds. I had the shot. There was no danger, so I took it.
You took it. And broke a major rule of engagement.
And of course, he's told that was the wrong choice.
Lieutenant Mitchell, Top Gun rules of engagement exist for your safety and for that of your team. They are not flexible, nor am I. Either obey them or you are history. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
And so they're kind of let go, and Viper, the head instructor, has a conversation with Jester, and again, it's so specifically about the ESTP. It so specifically talks about, hey, this guy is a great fighter pilot, but can we trust him to do the right thing and not react in a way that we can't be ready for and not cause us problems? Is he too dangerous up there because he is always reactive?
It's a wild card. Flies by the seat of his pants. Completely unpredictable.
He got you, didn't he?
Yeah.
Tell me one thing. If you had to go into battle, would you want him with you?
I don't know. Just don't know.
Now, the point of the hero's journey is that and how this deals with conscious growth is that it is the hero who is always trying to do what they've always done. It used to work in the ordinary world. It used to always work. But now that they've been put into a higher level situation of their life, those things are failing. They're not working as well anymore. It's not that easy. It's not that simple anymore. And they're doing the same things they've always done, but it's causing them problems. And there's a part of the hero's journey that has to deal with suffering. And the hero's journey, the person tries to do what they've always done and it doesn't work. So, in other movies, the hero will go and try to do something that's always worked, but this time it fails. And they don't get to simply skate out of it. There's a consequence. And so they're going to suffer. Maybe they get caught and they get thrown in jail, and then they try to do something else, and they keep on going and kind of stumbling from issue to issue and failure to failure, and nothing they do works. They simply cannot defeat the adversary. Now, in this case, the adversary for Maverick is himself, and he simply has to become an enlightened version of himself and see that this version of yourself it's not going to lead you anywhere. If you keep doing that, you have to grow, you have to mature. And you, of course, in your hero's journey will see and have those moments where you go, you know what, that was a really bad decision. That really didn't work out. I need to not do that. And we have that moment in the movie where he meets with Goose. Goose actually comes to him and wants to have a talk. And like we said, Goose, in this story, in storytelling, he's serving as his conscience, right? So he sits down with them and has a conversation and says, we can't do this anymore. And for a moment, Maverick sees the truth in that and agrees.
I gotta be straight with you, Mav. Right now, I just hope we graduate. I got a family to think about. I can't afford to blow this.
I guess that flyby wasn't such a big hit, huh?
Look, man, I know it's tough for you. They wouldn't let you in the academy because you're Duke Mitchell's kid. You have to live with that reputation. But it's like every time we go up there, it's like you're flying against a ghost. Makes me nervous.
You're the only family I've got. I'm not gonna let you down, I promise.
Get out of here.
So it's important to note that we're starting to travel down into the unconscious functions. And part of that story, part of Maverick hearing that from Goose and saying, we got to change, is that Maverick is repressing certain cognitive functions, not looking at that information. And one of those is SI. So that's the first unconscious cognitive function. And what we mean by unconscious is it's information that is being repressed in favor of the conscious functions. So for his SE, he's not really wanting to kind of look at those experiences and really understand what he's been doing, how that's been affecting him. He doesn't really want to look at that information because, again, I can handle it. I can SE handle it and deal with it in the moment. I don't really need to think about it too much. I don't really need to understand those experiences and how they're affecting me. I'm going to repress that in favor of I'm going to go and handle it right now. And I'll go change that right now instead of really introverting, because again, Maverick is an extrovert, and really introverting more deeply to understand how his decisions are affecting him, how they're affecting, his life and other people's lives for that matter. And of course, the next unconscious function of TE is he understanding how he fits into that system? Is he listening to other people and saying, let me listen to the logic of other people? Because he has plenty of other people who are telling him, hey, you're kind of messing up, you're causing problems, but he's still believing that, what, I don't care, I don't have to listen to you. I've got like my own understanding of what I'm doing, and I'm going to kind of brush off the logic of others, I want to be in this system. I do believe in being part of a logical world, but I'm still going to do it in my own way versus the others. And so he's brushing off that information as well. And that's going to lead us to this inferior FI moment and how that's going to play out for him. And so we come back a little bit into the love story aspect of the story. And there is a moment where his love interest, who happens to be an instructor, is going over the right way and the wrong way on how to react in certain moments. And she's going over something that he was involved in, the incident that took place at the beginning of the movie. And she's going over it and saying, that's not the right way to handle the situation. And of course that, that's bruising that person's ego by going, you chose wrong, you saw wrong. What you believed was true was actually the completely wrong thing to do. And so Maverick gets his ego bruised and doesn't take that very well.
But I think that we've shown it as an example of what not to do. Next. Now then, this is a perfect example of a textbook maneuver.
So that's it for him. He doesn't want to deal with it. He doesn't want to hear anything else. He's heard enough. He's walking away. And she's trying to follow him and kind of explain her position, explain why she said that, which leads to probably the most infantile moment that I've ever seen in a action movie. And he gets on his motorcycle, right? He's got to look pretty cool. He gets on his motorcycle and does this thing where he's like, I can't hear what you're saying, while he's revving it up.
My review of your flight performance in the test was right on in my professional opinion.
I can't hear you!
And the having FI so low in their consciousness, they're not really good with it. They're not really being good with having their egos bruised. And ESTPs can have difficulty accessing that FI. And they can be a little reactive when they feel like people aren't happy with them or they did something wrong. They're not very good about accessing that introverted feeling and having a conversation about it. So, that can lead them to being a little childish. But she finally catches up to him and, makes everything better by saying, actually, I think you're brilliant and everything you did was awesome. And suddenly he's like, you know what, I think I love you. So it all works out. And they move on from there, and the relationship goes back, and everything's great.
Is that right?
That is right.
But I held something back. I see some real genius in your flying, Maverick, but I can't say that in there.
I was afraid that everyone in that tax trailer would see right through me.
And I just don't want anyone to know that I've fallen for you.